On this week's episode of Constructive Criticism, I'm joined once again by Manny and Casey, and we discuss the modern power rankings since the banning of Splinter Twin, as well as a training grounds on making meaningful plays and how that impacts an individual game of Magic. Thank you everybody for listening, and enjoy the episode. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 122 of Constructive Criticism. I'm your host just like every week, and I am joined by my co-host, the man on the waiting list for Justin Bieber's entourage, Manny Perez. What's up, Manny?
I would do anything to be a part of that entourage.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
You were worried.
I forgot all about it.
You were worried.
Yeah.
I told Manny today, I said, the unicorn's gone, man.
Gone.
It's a new...
Poof, pow.
A new intro for you.
Yeah. I'll do it. Yeah. I bet those guys have so much fun. I mean, I don't...
I appreciate that you said fun.
Those guys get so much good times together. Yeah.
Good times all day, all night.
I am so glad you said fun.
They're pushing off the fun. Like day and night, those guys.
Yeah. They can't fight it off.
They can't. They have fun in the waiting room. I'm also joined by my co-host, the man still fighting off craft sponsorships, Manny. Casey Bloodworth. Sorry about that.
This recurring joke is still probably one of the worst things that's ever happened to me. So,
or the best. Once you go to a GP and get some free grilled cheese, it will be great.
I do love a grilled cheese sandwich, but
they're very underrated.
I feel like it's being oversold.
I mean, you don't know. You don't know how good our fans' grilled cheese are.
That's true.
It could change your life.
That's certainly plausible.
I mean, imagine living in a world where you can travel to GPs and eat for free all the time because people are just handing you grilled cheese.
That's true.
I mean,
my concern is I would hope that they're making them at the site because I don't want them making a grilled cheese, traveling cross country in a sweaty van, and then handing it to me and then expecting me to eat it because I don't want that.
Giving you random grilled cheese at that point.
Yeah.
I mean,
I made this grilled cheese back in Oakland, by the way, and now we're in Dallas.
That would just make you hate grilled cheese, right? Like if you had to eat it constantly.
I think that there's enough cheeses and like
cheeses, bread. I mean,
it's still all
style,
dairy.
There's
still all
stylistic
dairy
things.
No. They're different cheeses taste so different, and different breads taste so different.
I mean, you can put like jelly on them, and you can do fun things.
Jelly.
There's a whole jelly and grilled cheese community out there.
I mean, he would know, not
it's
me.
Delicious.
He's the aficionado.
I'll bring you one.
He's the aficionado.
Bring you
would
both.
know.
I guess a half.
You know where you can find cards and not grilled cheese sandwiches as our sponsor at Oasis Game. You can check them out at oasisgameslc.com. You can get 15% off of your first order by using the code CCMTG at checkout.
Again, that's 1-5.
Yeah, 1-5, not 5-0. You get 5% off of every order by using the code Would That Be Good. Once again, that's oasisgameslc.com. They're just the best place to buy Magic cards.
Yeah, best store on earth. We all use them. They're great. Like our team, just us borrowing decks from them wouldn't be possible without them. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Also, I like to use the URL mtgoasis.com. I think it's easier to remember.
mtgoasis.com also works. So does there's more.
There's oasisccg.com.
Oasisccg.com is another one, yeah.
Yeah, there's a handful, but MTG Oasis is just the easiest one for me to remember.
For some reason, though, oasisgames.com, he can't get that one.
I know.
Yeah, it's basically type any combination of Oasis, game, and com into your computer, and you'll get them other than that.
Yeah, other than the one that he wants.
Yeah, I mean, I still forget, and I'll go there, and I'll be like, what is this, like, Crab Flash video game? I came here to buy Magic cards.
Yeah.
Dude, when did we get into the 1989 video game sector?
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to field, like, Sega Genesis games that were just not good enough to make it.
It literally looks like Lemmings reinvented.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, Lemmings reinvented.
And, there's no way they're making money. It's so mind-boggling.
No way. It costs them to run that site more than they make from anything that they could possibly do on it.
Well, not only that, but, like, the website lapsed, and he bid on it, and then the people that lapsed, and then they were like, "Oh, we didn't mean to let this lapse. Like, here's our money," so he didn't get to buy it.
Oh man.
Yeah, frustrating. Well, enough about Oasis Games, the video game creators. Let's talk about our awesome patrons. This week we have a shout out to Tim C., our newest Patreon supporter. He's a patron of the show.
Just think like classical Rome, right? Like a patron of the arts.
Yeah, I mean,
you won't forget.
I will. I'll always mess this up
every time.
But Tim, we really appreciate it. Anybody who, we understand that it's not easy for everybody, and that's why we make the show free. But we appreciate everything that you can donate or support the show in any way. So thank you so much to Tim. Shout out to you, man.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, let's talk about what the show is about, and that's #AlwaysImproving. Manny, what is #AlwaysImproving about? Like, what is it? Just the show? What is it?
No, so it's our Twitter outreach program.
Not this one.
Mm-hmm.
#Would that be good as our Twitter outreach program?
Oh, that's right. Forgot what I was talking about.
It's okay.
So, always improving, is pretty much like the philosophy we live by here.
That was the best.
Yeah.
Forgot what I was talking about.
So, it's a motto we live by. We're always trying to get better. And I think we're all pretty much on the same page where if you're not getting better, you are getting worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you're not trying to,
there's no such thing as staying in the same place.
Never, no, not
You're
for
either getting
athletes,
fatter, getting skinnier, getting muscle, like...
Exactly.
Think of it like if you're in the ocean, like there's no way that you'll be able to stay exactly at the same depth, right? You're either going to be sinking or rising.
I would say sink or swim. That's,
Right. Yeah, you're either sinking or swimming. Exactly.
Close.
And eventually, if you got far enough, you might be rising.
Sure.
I mean, if you're dead, you're definitely rising from the bottom.
Right. Anyway, tangent.
But hopefully not too quickly because that can cause decompression sickness.
Yeah. Or, what if you're afraid of the water? What do you do
so #AlwaysImproving is the point of this podcast. It's, like Manny said, the point is that we believe that if you're not getting better, you are getting worse. And there's always something you can be doing to improve. So, Manny, how did you improve at Magic this week?
I will tell you. So this last Saturday, I played a PPTQ and 0-2 to tournament for the first time in a long, long time. And, it was my fault. I was playing sloppy. I wasn't focusing like I was supposed to. And it was pretty crushing to my ego while all of my the majority of my teammates there made it to top 8 and I 0-2
there were
dropped.
7 of us there and 5 of us were in top 8.
Yeah, exactly. So, it was pretty crushing. It did
to
not
be
feel
fair,
good.
Quinn also 0-2'd that tournament.
That's true. I forgot he did. No, he played a third round, but
so he 0-3'd.
Yeah, he 0-3'd. Still, I was whatever.
And Matt started out 0-2 and then made top 8.
He actually came in 5th place.
Yeah, I gave him the bye. So lucky him. I would have crushed him. Anyway, so just, that spirit, right? I was really down. I was really out. I felt bad about myself. I felt bad about my playing, but I rallied and I was like, you know what? This happens. You just tighten your play, focus on what you do, what makes you a better Magic player, and go from there. So this week, I learned a little bit more about being persistent. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to top 8 some more events, and I'm going to get there.
Gonna win that RPTQ?
Yeah, I'm gonna win that Snapcaster match.
That elusive RPTQ win for
I
you.
need it.
So for me, I did something that I regret not doing at the Pro Tour, and there's a lot of conversation on our team quote unquote page about what deck to play and like what's the best deck and what matchups are good and things like that. And I don't know what it is about. It was actually funny because while we're all having these discussions in our team page, the Constructive Criticism Facebook group, Dan, one of our patrons, he launches a post about Savage Knuckleblade.
Yes,
and how he thinks it's overrated, right?
Right.
And I'm over here thinking everyone is just ragging on my deck, just all the time. I can't do anything, and my win percentage with that deck is insane.
You went to the quarterfinals, finals.
I went to the finals with this deck. I top-aided another PPTQ right after I won an RPTQ with the deck.
Yeah.
I don't lose with the deck, and everybody just was like, it's funny because in testing, everybody was like, oh yeah, this deck is sweet. Savage Knuckleblade is sweet. Nobody played Teamer.
I think that's because we're all kind of suckers, and even though we play something that we like, we still, at the end of the day, look at top 8s and are like, oh, that's hot, I want to play that.
Sure. And the thing is so going into it, everybody was suggesting, play Dark Jeskai, play Dark Jeskai. I got, a ton of people telling me to play Dark Jeskai for this PPTQ. And I, kind of wrote down some pros and cons on my iPad. I was like, what is the good matchups for Dark Jeskai that aren't good for Teamer Black? and they were all the same matchups, except that I actually talked to you about this, Casey, where with Dark Jeskai, like, you play from behind so much.
Yeah, the entire game.
Yeah.
I've now played one game where I felt like I was ahead, and it was because my opponent kind of stumbled on their mana, and I just ran away with the game, but it still took forever to kill them.
Yeah, and so with Teamer Black, I feel like I'm playing the same deck, except that I can be ahead. And so that was my final decision, was actually Casey just talking about the deck, Jeskai Black, and I was like, well, I'm not doing that. Like, I want to be able to just win games. And so I picked up Teamer Black, and it was amazing. I didn't lose a match until the finals. It was just as good as I remember it being, as it's always been for me. I had a little bit of help from Alex Sittner and Matt Kling in fixing my mana base so that I could splash a double black spell in the form of Kalitas, and it was amazing. Like, everything about it was great. So I played what I knew was right despite people around me, and I'm proud of myself for that.
I see that.
Casey, how did you improve in Magic?
Well, I have had a really bad habit in Magic of audibling at the last moment on deck selection in a lot of tournaments. And I had an idea going into this tournament. The whole week I'd planned on playing Jeskai Black. And then I had an idea the Friday before, just the day before we played in this tournament, that I was going to play this 4-color Collected Company deck. And I was like working on brewing and working out the mana base and things like that. And then I decided basically that that it wasn't worth it. This is something that I've done before, and I've always been burned by it. And I learned from my past mistakes of trying to brew decks the day before a tournament to almost no advantage. And decided to play Jeskai Black, the deck that I was comfortable playing. Ended up, running. I only lost to one person, but I unfortunately lost to them twice in the tournament, once in the Swiss and once in the top 8. But it was somebody who had specifically built their deck to beat Jeskai Black, and a teammate of ours, Michael. And he certainly was prepared for that matchup, and I was not able to get by him either time. But I still felt like it was the right deck selection, and I started myself for, sticking with it as well.
I am too. Like, it's so easy to make that snap audible, and sometimes it's right, but we've never done it.
Right, we've never been on the right side of it.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever been on the right side of it either. So, but yeah, so let's talk about the show and how it's always improving. So, don't forget that if you are a Patreon supporter and a patron of $10 or more, you are eligible for the Google Hangouts that we are currently 75 cents short for. Man, we're 75 cents short, Manny.
Yeah.
Per month. Obviously, screw that. We're going to do it anyway.
75 cents. I throw that in the gutter. I don't care about that.
Yeah, I 100% don't care that we're 75 cents short of that goal. So if you are a patron of 75 cents, of $10 or more, we are doing a Google Hangout next Thursday. So we sent you a message on the Patreon website. So we just check that. We're going to just send out the Google Invite Hangouts to the email address you have posted. If we don't have enough slots, if people are busy, we will be reaching out to other people to fill those slots, just so we have a nice group of people to hang out with.
It'll be a good time.
Yeah, it'll be a great time. We're really excited about it. So
yeah, it's been a while, but they're a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, they're great fun. So we are definitely going to fulfill that goal, even though we were 75 cents short. They also changed the way that the Patreon goals were done, whereas we're actually at $114 or something in donations, but we're at $90 post declines and fees, and they didn't used to include that in it. So I don't know, it's kind of weird. Anyway, so stay tuned. Next one is next Thursday, so hit us up if you want to be a part of that and you are eligible. So thank you so much to all the patrons who are donating. You will be first in line to get that benefit if somebody backs out. So thank you so much, everybody. Patreon question of the week. We don't have any.
Not even one?
No, not this week. So this one is not the most popular one. We might just get rid of it. The thing is that we do so much of this in the Facebook group already. Like, we are so involved in the Facebook group.
Right.
That it's hard. Like, what are they going to ask us that they can't already ask us?
At any time of the day.
Yeah. We're
too accessible. We did not build a market for this service.
We didn't. Like, it sounds like a joke, but we actually are too accessible, right?
No, so what we should do... okay. What should we do?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's multiple weeks where this doesn't happen. Sometimes they have a legitimate thing that they want us to talk about on the cast, and I'm happy to always do that for them.
Well, if the patrons, I almost got caught. If the patrons want to ask us a question and they just want to launch it through the Facebook group, we can definitely do that too. That's fine, and we can answer it on the show.
Yeah. I don't know what to do with this, because like it was something that somebody had suggested when we asked for feedback of what the Patreon benefits should be. This was one of them, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm happy to do that, and it's not taking off because I just always answer the question right then.
Me too.
Yeah, we get questions
When
through
we look
Facebook.
when
we
we
get
look at our
questions through
Facebook page
Twitter.
itself, like the Constructive Criticism Facebook page, our message response time is like 3 minutes.
Yeah,
And like most
Fire.
yeah.
we get a lot.
Like, why are you going to wait a week for something you can get now?
Yeah, it's and we do that because we want to be accessible. So we'll think of something for the patrons of the show that want something here. We want the patrons to be involved in the show. It's like a big deal to us. So we'll think of something. But every week on this podcast, we do talk about the best 5 decks that are performing in a specific format. We do this by a ranking system where we give decks points according to their finish in a certain number of tournaments. We have first place getting 6 points, second place getting 5 points, third and fourth getting 4, top 8 getting 3, top 16 getting 2, and top 32 getting 1 if available. This week we're doing Modern, and we're doing the last 2 weeks of events. The only events that we have are the Star City Classics right now. But let's talk about this 3-way tie we have at 5th place. Coming in at number 5, we're going to start with Zoo. So Zoo coming in with 8 points. This deck is kind of clumped together. A lot of these Zoo decks are actually just Gruul, Splashing White for Wild Nicodle.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's really what's going on
and
here.
Path, and that's fine. Like
Zoo is kind of a broad term. There's like 1 or 2 of them that you could probably bend the rules and call them burn decks also.
Yeah.
But basically where I drew the line is Wild Nicodle.
Sure.
Wild Nicodle, it's a Zoo deck.
Okay.
I mean, some burn decks played Nicodle though. Like,
that's
and
true.
not
Some of
many
them,
other
some
things.
of them do.
Yeah, and
The
there was one that I
aggressive-
was tough about.
The aggressive lines in Modern are very blurred right now. But let's talk about the deck that Manny has up really quick. And this is by Zan Seed.
Syed? I don't.
Seed.
I think it would be Sied.
Sied. All right, Zan Sied. He top 8'd on the 24th, so that would be this last one, or no, that would be last
That would
week.
be a week ago.
About a week ago. So this list is pretty close to what Manny and I have been pushing pretty hard in the format. He is playing Dryad Arbors and Path in the main deck. Other than that, it's pretty close. He's playing Path instead of some of the things that we were doing, like Dismember and stuff like that.
Right.
I don't really have a problem with if you want to give them man advantage because you think you're fast enough to not care about it. I just think you usually care.
And well, this list is a little different, right? They're playing Goblin Guides. I feel like that does make them a hair faster. They're not. I feel like they're not necessarily going as wide as we are.
What do you mean?
So with the inclusion of things like Lavamancer and Goblin Guide, like we're playing much tougher, like higher toughness creatures that are more resilient to things.
What creatures are we playing that they're not?
Let's see.
Oh, you know what I just thought of though? Dominraid gets Dryad Arbor.
That's true.
Huh.
I mean, there is some opportunity cost to playing Dryad Arbor as one of your
As
lands.
one of your lands and one of your creatures.
Yeah, you have to count it as a creature because it doesn't let you play spells on turn 1, which is a pretty big downside. Like,
Especially in an experiment one
Flint
deck.
Hoofbore. So they traded
Oh,
Flint
they're
Hoofbore
not playing Flint Hoofbore.
for
They're playing
Goblin
Goblin
Guide.
Guide.
Yeah,
That seems worse.
I agree. But
I don't know. I still like the deck. I think that they're trying to be a little bit faster, but I think that like you're choking yourself by playing both Wild Nicodle Experiment 1 and Goblin Guide and Curd Ape. Like, it's just too many. I don't know.
I mean,
it seems
it's
too mana
okay.
intensive, but like I guess it doesn't really matter. You're just going to shock yourself anyway.
I think it's,
Right.
it's
I
I think that's
preference-
what you were thinking, right, Casey?
yeah, basically you started about 13 life in this deck, and I think that's kind of the same as the deck that you guys have
Absolutely,
been playing.
yeah.
Like, it's just going to happen. You're fetching a Stomping Grounds turn 1 basically every game, and then you're probably playing a Temple Garden or
You know, in my
a
life
Sacred
I have
Fountain.
Basic Forest.
Oh, that's so bad.
You're still not grabbing that. That's not happening.
Yeah,
That's never
like-
happening.
That's like a turn 4 fetch, maybe if you like need a random land or something. You almost never want to actually play that on turn 1, which
I just meant I had a Basic Forest in my opener.
yeah,
Oh,
but like,
just-
even,
oh.
I was
even
just
then,
proving that you don't know my life.
even then you don't usually want to play it though because like
Sure.
It makes like playing 2 spells on turn 2 tough, and having a 3/3 wild Mikado.
This sideboard is interesting though. And we're just talking about this guy's deck list when what we should be talking about is
the archetype.
Yeah, I think that this version of the archetype is the one that is better right now. I don't really like the Lockstone Smiter builds right now. I think that they are too slow for the metagame. You want to really put a good amount of pressure on the
big mana decks.
The big mana decks, exactly. And not, I don't want to be messing around with things like Collected Company and
or Knight of the Reliquary.
It's just I don't have time to do that. I want to just get them dead.
Yeah, those things are very powerful in a vacuum, but when you're playing an aggressive deck, it just seems too slow.
Which is funny because I think last time we did Modern, the Collected Company Zoo deck was like crushing it.
Yeah, and I think that deck is good and like could possibly settle in a little bit. That deck was like an insane like string of one-ofs and things like that to find with your Collected Companies. Had like some interesting deck building choices. Like Kasali Pride Mage is a lot less powerful now than it was then. Things like that. So I think that with some fine tuning, and that deck could settle in more because it is playing more of a silver bullet strategy because of Collected Company, which is less good when the metagame is this hectic. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a return of Big Zoo with Knight of the Reliquary. Maybe even one day, Thunder My Hellkites rule the skies once again. Who knows?
Yeah, I think when Lingering Souls comes back a little bit hard, and that's definitely possible with the, banning of Splinter Twin, that could happen.
Right, you can play a 5-drop and not just die. That's theoretically plausible.
That is something that can happen, exactly. Well, let's move on to the next deck that I will kind of just tag out on. I don't really have a lot to say about this deck. I've actually just never actually played it. I've only played against it, and that's Infect coming with tied for 5th place at 8 points.
It's a deck I've played with. I've had some success with it. It's fun. It's fine. You can get turn 2 kills with it. It's not. It's a rare thing, but it does happen.
Yeah. I think your turn 3 kill percentage is the highest in Modern with this.
Yeah,
deck.
it's very good. It's consistent as long as you're aggressive with mulligans.
Yeah. You can never keep a hand without an infect creature.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Going to 1 is better than keeping a 2 without a creature.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say you can safely mulligan to 4 with this deck and still have a pretty good shot at winning.
Fact.
Having said that, though, I think it's pretty easy to play against. Every time I play against it, even with green red aggro, I feel very, very good about the matchup. It's fine.
Yeah.
My creatures are bigger than theirs. They're going to stay bigger. And if I keep blocking and they keep pumping their creature with it, I'm totally okay trading their 2 cards for my 1.
Yeah. I don't know. This is a much harder deck to play than people realize. And the fact that it gives free wins makes it appeal to people more than it probably should.
Sure, yeah.
The deck is
definitely
pretty hard to play to get the maximum value out of your spells and sequence them correctly. When you're watching somebody who's like a real master with the deck, like a Tom Ross versus some random guy at your local store.
Jobin?
Yeah.
Jobin.
I think that's what they call them in Canada. I think that what Casey's saying is actually a really important point because my experience against this deck is I've lost to it one time in the top 8 of a PPTQ, and I have not lost to it since. Actually, I've beaten that same player playing that deck. I feel like I lost because I didn't know the mana cost had become immense.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that, right?
It costs... I didn't see that, but it costs 1. Yeah. I don't know if you knew.
Well, it costs 6, and he thought it was 8.
Yeah, I thought it was...
Oh, no!
I thought it was 8.
Oh, that's...
I actually thought you were watching. Was that you?
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
That was
I was supposed to win that tournament.
That was one of the worst tournament experiences of my life. That whole tournament was so bad, and we had to play each other for a win and in, and then we both played terrible, and then you lost in the quarterfinals because you were still on tilt from that, and then played terrible against.
Was this
him.
in Layton?
No, it was
anyway.
Yeah.
Okay,
I blocked a lot of that out.
fair enough.
Okay.
Anyway, long story short, Infect's great.
No, my point is I don't.
Infect is very good.
No, my point actually was that I don't like the players that play the deck. I think do exactly what he's talking about, where they're like, "Oh, I get free wins because it's this really fast deck," but the deck does well in the hands of really, really good players, and that is not something that people take into account. The fact that they need to play the deck extremely tight to do well with it.
I think that's something that everyone should take into account about every single deck. Something like Splinter Twin, right? I almost used a bad word, but every Joe Schmo who picked up that deck got free wins off of it, right? You just go for it, whether they're supposed to or not. It happened.
Yeah, you would steal some for sure.
Right. But I mean, again, it was in the hands of incredibly talented players that give you a rough time, where you just have these long, grindy, terrible matches where they got you.
Yeah, like you couldn't do anything. You could either die to a 2-1 or you could just die. Like,
Right.
Those were your
Yeah.
Those were your choices. And Infect does have a similar interaction. It's not as interactive, obviously. You're not playing a ton of removal, a ton of counter spells, because you're really trying to get your stuff in. But the deck is powerful, and yeah, it's something that if you are picking up the deck and you find yourself losing with it, don't get discouraged. Get educated.
Right. Yeah. Practice. I mean, I think this deck, especially for me, in my mind, when I'm thinking about Magic the Gathering, is know when to hold them, know when to fold them. That's this deck. Like, you have to know exactly when to sequence your pump spells, when to play them, when not to play them, especially.
Yes.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, and people are, there's a lot of little things with the deck, like being willing to just get in 5 one turn and 5 the next turn. People want to do it all at once for some reason.
We were watching, Casey and I were watching,
a Channel Fireball video.
We were watching Josh McClain, in case anybody wants one.
Who's a very good Magic player, but
he's very good, and he's also a sweetheart, in case no one's ever met him.
Very nice guy,
one
very,
of the nicest
very
guys
talented
I've
players.
ever hung out with.
Not super familiar with the deck. You could tell, I think he even said that in his deck.
He was making decisions where Casey and I are of the opinion that when your opponent is tapped out, you just do all the infect.
Right, you'd get in, you put him at 9 poison.
Yeah,
and then
everything.
Absolutely. And he was making decisions while his opponents were tapped out to save his mutagenic growths. And so Casey and I don't like that. We want to put them at 2 if we can, right? Because that makes
any single point that slips through is lethal.
Right. And so we were watching that, and I think that a lot of people, including Josh, I think Josh in his video talked about how he wasn't as experienced with the deck as he'd like to be, but I am of the opinion that it's a deck where you gain your advantages when you can. And so it's pretty important that you make those decisions on when to cast those mutagenic growths. And I would do them most of the time when my opponent is just not available to react to it. So let's move on to the other 5th place deck. We have Tamer Delver. I have Todd Anderson's Lifts Up, and I've never wanted to hoot so hard. I actually really like this deck list. Yeah, hoot and holler. This deck list is actually sweet.
It looks super cool. I like it.
Yeah, there's
the only thing that I am not of the opinion that I want 4 remands in Delver decks. I still like a 3-2 split with Mana Leak every time.
Yeah, I'm also a Mana Leak guy in my Delver decks because you actually just want to get rid of stuff. You don't necessarily want to keep playing against the same cards.
Yeah. Especially
removal spells. Vapor Snag is great because it's okay, get your stupid creature, waste your mana. But Remand is not as good.
Yeah. So other than that, though, this deck list is hot.
Yeah. And
I'm very, very happy to see a Delver variant doing well.
Yeah, and he took this thing by storm. And there's a lot of, I'm not sure how much
of it is testing numbers.
And how much of it is this seems good. Because Gutshot is a weird sideboard card. You're making a statement by playing Gutshot in your sideboard. I'm not sure what it is. But
that you will not tolerate Infect.
Yeah, something that.
That's it. That's the one.
Such an interesting card choice.
Yeah. And he's playing 2 of them, so he's obviously wants it for something. And Spreading Seas in the sideboard.
Threads of Disloyalty out of the board, Spreading Seas, Gutshot. Wow.
I think it's interesting.
I'm surprised every time I look at it.
His sideboard is really teched for the mirror, which is interesting because it's not a very popular deck. So I think
is it?
Yeah, dude. Threads of Disloyalty is great in the mirror. Grim Lavamancer is great in the mirror. Gutshot is great in the mirror. Dispel is great in the mirror.
I think Threads is just good right now.
Sure, but when that card saw its last big resurgence in Modern, it was because literally every single person on Earth was playing Delver.
I mean, every single person was playing Tarmogoyf, right?
Not really. That was a kind of a small subsection. You mostly wanted to get their Young Pyromancer.
And this card's 1/3 the price that it was then.
Yeah, because you didn't need it in every deck.
It's also sold out, so. I like this deck. I think that this deck can do well. I'm not surprised to see Dodd do well with it. I know he's been a pretty big fan of Rug decks in general. Rug Twin was his baby, and this is a pretty easy port for him. I really like the one of Is It Charm in his deck. I like the one of Dismember. I like the Thought Scour, Gitaxian Pro Split. I just love this deck list, actually.
Yeah, it looks very good.
I'm not the biggest Todd Anderson deck list fan. He's a pretty cool guy to throw a few back with, but man, this deck list is sweet. Shout out to Todd.
Yeah, he seemed like he was like really prepared for this modern classic, and I think he was like a step ahead of the metagame, and I would not be surprised to see something like this showing up more at the Pro Tour.
I think I'm going to buy this deck.
You would.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go get it.
And on next week on Constructed Criticism, we're actually going to have an intervention for Manny's shopping habits. So it's going to be a special episode next week.
Do not look at how much money I've spent at Oasis. Don't go there.
Let's move on to number 4. We have Green Red Tron coming in with 9 points, only 1 point above.
The fray.
It's interesting that this deck is not as dominant as people have been saying. The deck actually just isn't that different. I mean, it's obviously not playing Emrakul anymore. It's just playing the new Lamog. This one from Louis. How do you say this last name?
Falsigno.
We're gonna go with that. He's got a 1 of Warping Well, which is interesting. But I don't know. Like, I'm honestly, this deck just
seems. I mean, it's standard.
I don't have
Green
it.
Red Tron.
It's just Green Red Tron.
There's nothing new. There's nothing
new,
exciting.
exciting. Exactly.
I mean, I think I was talking about this well in advance that Green Red Tron just had this big target painted on its back where everyone was speculating. Everyone was like, "This is going to be the best."
I mean, Merfolk has like
Merfolk shows this deck the door.
Yeah, Merfolk is doing well because of this deck.
Sure.
Right. Pyroclasm. Ha.
Yeah.
Ulamog, good luck with that. Like, you can if you're playing Tron, like you could play against Merfolk and not cast a spell.
Can you imagine like cast like they like cast? How do they cast Ulamog? How do they get to that? Because they were dead before that.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. I mean, you could maybe have it on turn 4 if you're lucky.
Yeah, but they're going to get you with a Spreading Seas, like without a doubt.
Yeah.
Make you look like an idiot.
Or a Ghost Quarter. Like.
Right.
Spreading Seas is good. Ghost Quarter is better than that usually.
So I do think that we obviously want to move on. Already, we're done with this. We want to move on to other
I've been
decks.
talking about this deck for 3 years. I've been over it.
Ugin's cool. Karn's good. Ulamog does a lot.
I think that Green Red Tron is still a great deck, and I think that it plays an important role in the metagame. And I'm glad to see that it hasn't exploded. I'm glad to see that. I hope that stays. I hope that this deck can keep certain decks in check for as long as it can. As long as it's not oppressive, I'm happy with this deck in the format. The next deck is my least favorite deck of all time, and that's Affinity.
Ever?
Yeah, I hate
all the
Affinity.
decks. Every one of them.
First of all, I don't like decks that I am not smart enough to play.
Okay. I mean,
and I am not smart enough to play Affinity.
I know that I am not, but I love that I can pick it up and just smash somebody in the face for like $1 billion.
Yeah, it has
feels so
A
good.
lot of people feel that way about that.
Yeah,
it has a
so
similar
good.
thing with Infect, where like a good Affinity player versus an average Affinity player, it's like 2 different decks. Where like if you play against some jabroni at your card shop, like whatever, maybe you'll win, maybe you'll lose.
What did you call that?
He called them a jabroni.
Jabroni.
What is a jabroni?
I don't know. It's something that The Rock said a lot when I was a kid, and the Iron Sheik before him. So
Yeah.
it's a cool thing to say. I'm pretty sure.
Definitely. They say it on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia a lot too.
When I look at an Affinity deck list, they look like a foreign language to me.
Yeah. Like, why would you ever play 3 Steel Overseers? That feels like a lot of Steel Overseers.
Or like 1 Etch Champion, 2 Memnite,
yeah.
1 Spellskite, 2 Master of Ethereum, 2 Hangerback Walker.
Yeah, sometimes a lot of Springleaf Drum, sometimes less, sometimes
4 Galvanic Blast, sometimes not Galvanic
Sometimes
Blast,
Thought
sometimes
Scour.
thought Cast is what you're saying.
Or yeah, Thoughtcast.
And
yeah, correct.
I don't
You don't get it?
I'm not smart enough.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
We should get a badge made. I'm gonna wear a badge to tournaments that says I am not smart enough to play Affinity. Because like I could win like some FNM with Affinity, right? Like obviously, but I couldn't play this deck.
Yeah,
If you asked me 2 lines that were in front of me with this deck, I'd have no idea. I just take the more aggressive one is what I would do. But that's not right.
Right. The problem with this deck is like you might have 8 lines in a turn, and 5 of them are winning.
Yeah, but which one's the best? Exactly.
Right, exactly. Like knowing which one is the best is like why it's so hard. And you have to, I think, to play this deck effectively, you have to be willing to sacrifice some points.
Yeah, I think that the correct line is always draw Cranial Plating.
Yeah,
That
super
seems
powerful.
like number 1. Step 1.
See, and I'm not good at Magic. I don't draw Cranial Plating every game.
Yeah, if you have a plating and
An Etch
and a
Champion.
Ravager,
Or
because like you get them coming and going, right? Like removal is good against against plating, but terrible against Ravager. Like they can just never
have
win.
both of them, right?
Right, they can
Just
never
every
win.
time.
It's
Yeah, and then have a card that's better than Lightning Bolt.
Yeah,
Throw
like
that in there
The
also.
strictly better lightning bolt.
Yeah.
I love the ether grid in the sideboard so much. By the way,
Yeah, it's
every time I see it,
it looks so
It's
bad,
like a
and then
new-
it plays like an
it's-
unbeatable card.
It's like a new mainstay in the sideboard of these decks that I love so much. For those who don't know, it's a red and 2 for an enchantment. You can tap 2 untapped artifacts you control to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. And so, like, you have so many artifacts that don't do anything. Like, you have cranial bladings lying around all the time, and like,
Spring Leaf Drum.
or like
Yeah.
a Spellskite
Does
yeah,
things,
creatures
yeah.
that aren't
There.
attacking. Yeah, it's interesting. It destroys the mirror match.
Yeah.
Oh, just annihilates the mirror match. They can never win if you line this
Are
first.
they splashing Ray of Revelation out of the board? That seems so aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like
They just do things that I love in this deck.
Affinity is basically a 5-color deck. You can really play whatever spells you want. Like you
Yeah,
only
off
have
of its 8 colored source, or I guess it's 12.
right,
Whatever.
plenty, tons. Because you as long like you can't play like Abrupt Decay, something that costs 2 colored mana, but you can play like 5 different colors of spells in your deck pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
the
this
number
guy
of times
is.
I've been beat by a Spell Pierce Thought Seize combination, and out of the board it's like too many.
What?
Yeah,
Ew.
yeah, where it's like
Yeah, that's how I felt.
That's like not fair.
yeah,
That's how I
You
felt.
should be able to do that.
Spencer and I both got laughed out of a PTQ in Boise, Idaho, by some Affinity guys playing Robo Fairies post.
It was the most ridiculous thing. So like they just and they don't do this anymore. But when Soul Artifact was printed,
Yeah.
it was like
It's bonkers.
everybody
It was
was
ridiculous.
Like, and Soul Artifact, my guy. But before they did that, they Thought Seize you, and then they'd leave up Spell Pierce the next turn, and you're like,
yeah.
this is stupid.
You're like
I actually thought it was broken. I didn't realize that, luckily, they would realize that it was terrible
Sure.
eventually. But it felt oppressive when you didn't have the answer.
Yeah, I mean,
right when they
very
played it
much
on
so.
turn 1 on their Memnite or something. You're like, well, I'm
That's
dead.
giant. I have nothing for
Pack
that.
it in.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I wasn't playing Abrupt Decay that day. Nobody was.
fact.
So obviously, I think this deck is hard to play. It's a staple of the format. I don't see it going anywhere.
It's never. I mean, can you even ban a key component? Like, if you get rid of cranial plating, is it still a deck?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I don't think. I
I
mean, that's
think-
its best card. I don't.
Yeah, I think that Ravager is probably the one that would weaken it more, just because like
Can we not do this? I don't want to talk about banning. I hate
Sure,
that.
sure.
I hate it when people talk about banning cards. Like,
Well, I mean,
let's talk about what
We're
we
not.
would
We're not
ban.
speculating. I'm just saying. Well, I
But
guess
it's
a little bit.
We're
Yeah,
spreading
sure.
we're
sure.
throwing coal on the fire. Let's move on.
Get rid of it.
It's so annoying. I hate it when modern players do that. Let's talk about Merfolk. This deck has like Casey and I for a long time have had the opinion that Merfolk is like the tier 1 deck that no one talks about and nobody plays.
Every
Basically
time I
unbeatable.
play against it, I
go, you don't know
how
you
do I
win.
win?
How do I win? I
How
have
do
no
I
idea.
win
I
this?
don't know.
It
I don't
never
know.
makes any sense.
I don't know how anyone beats it.
No, I don't know either.
It's been the tier 1 deck that no one's played for a long time, and now it's rearing its head. And Kira, the Great Glass Spinner, and Master of the Pearl Triton are coming to get you. And I actually think this deck is great. I would actually consider playing this deck right now.
Yeah,
I think that it's like
It's freaking phenomenal.
yeah,
It's
I think
so good.
I think it's great. Harbinger of the Tides with Aether Vial is like sweet.
Basically unbeatable.
Yeah, this deck is just sweet.
Yeah, this is actually one of the first decks I ever tried to play in Modern when the format was new. The first thing I played was Infect. This was the second deck I played in a tournament. And
You did?
yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I borrowed the cards from Jeff Deering. And I ended up losing in the finals of a GPT.
I now know why I didn't know that.
Yeah, I ended up losing in the finals of a GPT that I played it in because had never played the deck. I didn't really know Modern that well. I lost to the Blue White Red control deck that was popular at the time. Vinnie Gorman was actually the one who beat me.
Good man.
Yeah, and it was
There's such hateful cards.
it's
in this sideboard.
and I feel like if I were smarter and played better in that tournament, I would have won the GPT, and then I almost definitely would have played this at Grand Prix Portland, and probably would have played Merfolk for the rest of my life since then, because the deck has actually always been great. I let my kind of poor sequencing dissuade me from playing the deck. I didn't play it as much. I've tested the deck a lot, but never played it in a tournament since then.
Yeah, I think the deck is great. If you haven't tried it, try it. You can get. I mean, the deck
Super
is
fast,
sweet.
super aggressive, super resilient,
And,
it's
like,
just a
and it-
beast.
An astonishing amount of disruption. Like when you're like killing on turn 5, like a Spell Pierce does a lot.
Yeah.
And a Ghost Quarter does a lot. And a Spreading Seas is
goes
unbeatable.
a long way. Yeah, if you're playing something like Zoo and they get you with that,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Yeah, that card is great against Burn. You wouldn't think so, but like they
Phenomenal,
can't cast spells.
Yeah, let's go on to number 1. We have Burn coming in at number 1. I'm not surprised by this. I think that this is the cheapest option in Modern to be getting into a Tier 1 deck right now. So for that reason, people are going to be drawn to it at this time specifically. I think that also people aren't playing hate for it because they're playing so much Affinity and Green Red Tron hate. I don't expect this to hold the number 1 spot, but I do think it's a great deck. I think that it's a great deck choice if you're trying to get into Modern and learn the format. It was actually something that I recommended to Manny when he was trying to get into Modern, and other players, is like play a cheap aggressive deck and learn what makes the other decks lose and what makes the other decks win, and then you can pick your deck from there. And I still recommend that.
Yeah, I'm very much on board with that. I would have to disagree with you on one thing, though. I don't think that Burn is the number 1 seat solely because it is easy to get into. I think, because I mean, if you're thinking that all of the Twin players who were playing Twin are now getting into Burn, I feel like that would be a mistake. They're probably either still playing like Grixis, Blue Red, or some other variant. I think
sitting around listening to Celine Dion songs, crying their eyes out.
Yeah, probably still doing a lot of that.
Their Twin won't go on. It's gone.
Yeah.
I think Burn is just well positioned in this meta. I mean, I
do too. I don't think anyone's playing hate for it. Like I just said.
Sure. But I mean, even then, I just think it's surprising to me because I think Merfolk and Affinity are bad matchups for it. Post board Burn is okay. It's all right with Affinity. I think
that the only good matchup for Burn on this entire list is Tron.
It's pretty good against Infect.
Yeah, it's good against Infect. I think it's good against Delver.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about. I don't think it's good against.
I don't think it's good against Rug Delver.
I
think that actually
it's good against Blue Red Delver, but I haven't ever played that.
So the secret best hate card in Magic against Burn is Tarmogoyf.
It's really good.
People don't know that, but it's a fact.
Yeah, you can't do anything to it.
You can't kill it and you can't race it.
Yeah, you're just gonna eat 4 or 5 every turn. Your clock is not that fast.
So what would you guys play and why?
I'd play Merfolk.
I would also play Merfolk tomorrow. No, I wouldn't. I would play Rugscape Shift. I'm lying. I'm lying to the listeners.
Liar.
I would want to play Merfolk, but I would just play Rugscape Shift.
I would play either Temur Delver or Merfolk. I would definitely be interested in some Ghost Quarter Spreading Seas action.
Yeah, that seems hot.
And just kill him dead,
All right. I don't think that the one that we just looked at definitely wasn't playing Ghost Quarter.
Oh, a lot of them are.
I would.
Some.
I for sure would.
I think a lot of them play 2.
Yeah.
Which this guy is doing other stuff.
My main reason for wanting to play Merfolk is I've been on the other side.
Why would you play this land?
So almost all Merfolk decks play 2 to 3 lands that come into play untapped and tap for blue and don't get tapped down by choke. Sometimes it's Minamo, School at Water's Edge. Sometimes it's Oboro. Sometimes it's things like the fast lands.
Okay. I've seen him play. Both the Merfolk Fastland and Seachrome Coast.
Seachrome Coast, yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, just like even though there's not white spells in the deck, just untap blue sources that don't get shut out by choke. And like Blood Moon is almost always going to be bad against you, so people are going to never have that. But choke is always going to be good against you. So having some way to cast spells through it. I don't know exactly what the best lands to play in those slots are, but it's certainly something to be aware of.
All right. I would play Escape Shift because I think that it beats every single deck on this list. So,
you like your Merfolk matchup with Escape Shift?
Yeah, you like your Burn matchup?
I like every single matchup on this list.
I feel like it's not good for you.
So ever since I made the statement on this podcast that I was not losing to Burn again, I have not lost to Burn.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Fair.
I just every time it was just a matter of me playing tighter, and I think that that's a lot of the case against Burn. Is like you just have to know how to play against Burn.
Know when it's worth the shock, when it's not.
Yeah, there's so many lines that you take that you're like, man, if I just hadn't taken that one line, I would have won that game. And I don't know. I don't know what Rugscape's is bad. I mean, in testing, Casey, what's the best deck in Modern?
I mean, it's always tested very well. I do think that since the printing of this new Ulamog, Green Red Tron has crushed every time I've tested the matchup. You said that to me,
so I actually specifically went on Cockatrice, said looking for Tron players, and could not lose still.
Interesting. Because I crushed both Austin and Matt with it a lot. Neither of them could win a game, so we'll have to test that.
We should. Let's go on to our training grounds. So this week we're going to talk about making meaningful plays. So Manny, what is the definition of meaningful?
meaningful? Having a serious, important, or useful quality or purpose.
So the important thing on this is purpose, and we're going to get into that quite a bit. But what does this mean for Magic the Gathering? What does it mean? Like, so having a serious, important, or useful. So those are the those are the three main things of a quality or a purpose.
So in relation to Magic, I think that means whenever you sit down with your buddies, whether you're play testing or even playing matches, that you are there for a purpose. You're there for a reason. You have that seriousness about you.
And so when we're talking specifically about plays, it goes even deeper than that.
Oh, absolutely.
Where we're going into why did I make this decision instead of the other decision.
Yeah, we're going straight into the movie Inception right now, right? Like a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream. Like
we're breaking it down to the fundamental point
exactly.
of every play in the game of Magic matters, and so you need to have a reason, which we've done a podcast on, Casey, of having a reason for your plays.
Yeah, and we have. That was a long time ago.
It's the next step, which is making your plays meaningful and impact the game. Every decision you make. If you can, not every decision you make impacts the game.
But I mean, most of the time it does, right?
It does. It does.
Whether you want to, use your removal spell at that exact moment.
So it impacts the game because it pushes. Like, if you imagine a match of Magic, like we have a line in front of us, right? And you are on one side of the line, and your opponent is on the other side, right? And you start in the middle, or you start wherever the matchup depends. So let's say it's a 60-40 matchup, so it starts in their favor. And then every decision you make moves the line in a certain direction, right?
Absolutely.
So what you want to be doing is making your decisions move the line farther to you than their decisions make to them. Is exactly how I think of this training grounds. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's a good analogy.
Yeah. Every time I sit down for a match of Magic,
you imagine the line? Because that's amazing. Because I just made that up on the spot.
Very close. No, I imagine like a battle, like seen from overhead, where like both sides are fighting each other like old phalanx style, right? With like spears and shields, and they're just pushing back and forth.
Sure.
When you said that, I imagined Magic as like a World War I trench battle, and it sounded miserable.
That sounds terrible.
But when you're imagining this training grounds, I want you to think about that. It like there's a what is this?
It's probably a scale. Is probably a better way to think of it.
Sure, I mean either way. But what is this line is called something? There's a word for it. Anyway, so we've drawn a line, okay, and we start at where the percentage of the matchup usually lies, because your deck choice was the first decision, right? So now every play you make moves the like. If you guys have read Harry Potter, this is actually perfect. If you've read Harry Potter, in the final scene with Voldemort, they lock wands, right? And the thing moves back and forth, right?
Yeah, it's
also in the fourth book. Anyway, the point is that the decisions that Harry makes moves the spell closer to Voldemort or closer to himself. And this is the same thing that your decisions are doing in Magic. You're looking at me like I'm crazy right now.
No, I'm just thinking this is like the lamest Magic conversation I've ever had.
No, it's not.
This is the worst. I mean, the content is very, very important and definitely needs to be discussed. But man,
I'm trying to make the listeners, because we're doing. It's not a visual podcast, right? I can't draw.
Yeah,
the line
I understand.
And show them what I mean.
Sure,
but I think that it's important to note that the point of this is that your decisions become meaningful. What you're doing has an impact on the game. And what Manny says is right. Every decision does have an impact on the game. It's about where it moves that line and how far it moves it, right, Casey?
Yeah. There are certain things, like in Standard right now, fetching lands is a big one, right? Like, people tend to treat, like, getting their lands in play as kind of a choose-your-own-adventure, which it really isn't. Like, you need to make sure you're sequencing your lands correctly.
I hope our listeners don't choose their own adventure with their lands.
Why?
Because I hope they make it a meaningful decision to impact the rest of the game.
Sure, but I think that people generally treat it that way. Like, okay, I've got a Bloodstained Mire and a Polluted Delta. These can both get Smoldering Marsh, and I already have all my colors or whatever, and that's the land I want. But realizing, okay, if I use the Polluted Delta, that will only have one other land that it can fetch. So if I draw another Polluted Delta, I may not be able to use it.
It is nothing.
Where if I use the Smoldering Marsh, this has more lands that it can fetch left in the deck, so it's more value. Just a little tiny thing. It's a small decision. Because either way, you're playing a fetch land, cracking it, and getting a Smoldering Marsh. But it can be the difference between you winning and losing the game.
Well, let's talk about these small decisions really quick, Casey. So, Casey, how many decisions do you think you have throughout a turn of an average game of Magic?
I mean, depending on deck, sometimes it's as few as 2 or 3. Sometimes it's 8 or 9. It really depends.
Yeah, I mean, it probably goes all the way up to 12 in some formats.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's so many, right? Like what land to play, what land to fetch for, what creatures to attack with, what creatures to block with, what
Yeah.
instants to play.
I think that meaningful decisions, though, I think is what Casey's thinking of, where it drops dramatically.
Right, yeah. I mean, if you're counting, like, should I pass priority? Should I cast this instant in my upkeep step instead of my main phase? Whatever, like...
It's a lot, right? It's
But,
as
like-
many decisions as you could possibly think
yeah,
of.
there's 1,000, like,
Yeah,
little points of
But-
impact.
But that's the thing, is that if we're imagining this on this line, every single one of them does move that line in one way. If you're not improving, you're getting worse, right?
Yeah.
So when we think about it that way, how does any individual moment impact a game of Magic? How does the decision to remember when we don't remember because none of us were playing when it happened. I played shortly right after it happened. Casey, you were playing right when it happened, but I don't know that you owned one when Planeswalkers were invented.
That was
I did own a Planeswalker, but I was not so good at using it.
Well,
it was Chandra and Alara, because I don't think anybody was good at using it.
I don't know that them using it was the problem.
I think them using it was the problem. But
I see what you did there.
yeah.
No, I think that what's important to note is like you could take something as simple as a Planeswalker. So
swing on the
with all those decisions, we just took a break for a second. For those wondering why the podcast might sound weird, because Manny is just losing
Ill.
it.
He's not feeling well.
He's sick.
I am ill. I am not a well man.
But I think that actually something that Manny said that won't make it into the podcast. Another point that is it's like a swinging pendulum, right? You want the pendulum to be, going your direction.
Yeah.
And the decisions you make move that way. And so the minute decisions are important, but what's the most important is making the most out of each individual decision, and that's what makes them meaningful. It's because you had a purpose in doing what you were doing, and it increased the quality. So it gave, like we said in the definition, them a useful quality or a purpose when you made those decisions. So, Manny, this is something that you were playing against Austin Gelds at a Wednesday night tournament, and myself, Casey, and Matt Kling were all standing over you.
yes.
And you got pretty upset with us because we were disagreeing with you about mulligan decisions you were making in the game.
Yeah.
And you came back to me later saying that we were right, but in that moment you didn't understand what we were trying to get to, which was this point. And you've learned this. You've actually done a lot better recently with this after that conversation. Why don't you talk about what happened where you didn't realize what you were doing was wrong, and this is what was happening?
I think I don't remember. It was a while ago, but I think I played an incorrect land. And I didn't take good, solid advice about mulliganing, and I really shot myself in the foot. My hand was slow. It was non-interactive. It was just a sure ticket to lose.
So when you are willy-nillying through a tournament, right? When
Yes.
You are basically just going through and making every play off of a whim.
Mm-hmm.
How does that impact your results?
I mean, obviously negatively. Like, not well, not good at all. If you're sitting down and you're barely playing Magic, you're not going to do well. You're not going to learn. You're not going to get better. You're going to be stagnant and just be in the same place you normally are.
So obviously, having three of your friends, it can feel like you're being attacked, right?
Yeah, I definitely felt like the victim of real life bullying.
And we don't want you to feel that way, right? Because we love
No,
you.
no,
We think you're great.
Yeah.
We honestly love you.
No, I was just kidding. I don't feel that way.
I mean, sometimes
It kinda feels that way.
I think that Casey, and I think that everyone has felt that way when their friends have been like, "That was stupid."
You idiot.
Like, no, it comes across that way, like because you took a lot of mental energy to make the decision you made, right?
Sure.
A lot
yeah.
of the time. Sometimes you don't. I mean, sometimes I don't. Sometimes Casey. Sometimes we don't take the time to make that mental decision. So it's pretty easy to see that like something simple and that you would take for granted can actually make a huge arcing impact in the game, even through later turns. And that's a pretty big deal. So, Manny, something that you've worked on is when you're looking at decisions, finding the ones that will make the most impact throughout the next couple of turns.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I very first started playing, right, before I started learning more about the game and getting better at it, I would just make snap decisions and not think about later turns. For instance, if I had a Grasp of Darkness, right, and in a situation where I was staring down a Monastery, Soulfire Grandmaster, I would use it on that, not expecting something larger later that I could handle that. I could handle that to a turn. I could handle them having lifelink, but something much larger that would be just completely unmanageable by myself later on.
Yeah, I think that it's like pretty huge that when you break down the plays that I'm making, I need to have an impact on future turns of the game. Because a lot of people just play turn to turn, right, Casey? Where they're, well, this turn, this is the best play. This turn, this is the best play.
Right.
And they don't, I mean, we talked about understanding your role, right? Knowing what your role is in the matchup. That can make a decision to, for example, to hit your land drops way more important than the decision to kill that guy. Because in the end, even if you kill that guy, they can then next turn, if they can play 2 spells as the aggressive deck and you're still stuck playing 1 spell, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, that can very easily be true.
Yeah, and you can fall pretty far behind. So those are the kind of plays that we want to talk about. Those are the kind of things that we want to discuss. One of the things that that Manny and I have discussed before is, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is what a game of Magic looks like when you make impactful plays versus just playing Magic. And something that that when Manny, you were playing the junk deck, the junk tokens deck, and you mentioned how the deck was really hard to play because all of your decisions were minute.
Right.
Every single one was like this marginal thing.
Yeah, you were just trying to get little incremental bits of value to add up to something.
Right. And so when I mean, obviously there are times where you see like these huge sweeping broad plays, but what you want to find is that little play that makes a huge impact, and that swings that dot on the line closer to your side the most. So, with individual decisions, how do you decide which ones are meaningful before you ever make them? Casey?
Well, it can be really tough. The thing is, you have to figure out like what your path to victory is in the game. That's something that I'll ask out loud a lot when we're playtesting. Okay, what's my path to victory? It's not going to include playing against this card anymore, so I have to kill it this turn. If I let this creature attack me again, like, I'm probably not coming back. Or it involves getting in damage, lowering your life total, whatever. You have to kind of visualize from where you are in the game what your path to victory looks like. Not just maximizing the value of a turn, but what things are going to happen that are going to actually lead to you winning a game. And if you aren't thinking of the game in those terms, it's very easy to fall behind if your opponent is focused on winning the game. If they're willing to sacrifice percentage points on this turn to make them up and then some in 4 turns, and you are not, you're going to lose, and you're probably not going to understand why. So you have to think what things can happen in a game that will lead to you winning, and that's where meaningful plays come from.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think you could have said it any better.
I don't really have much to add to that. Like when you look back on it, when you break it down into the tiniest little bits, what Casey's saying is, does this lead to my end game? Is this what I was trying to do when I sat down?
Right.
And obviously that can change sometimes, but usually if you've done your job, right, you've done your playtesting, Casey, you know what your role is.
Yeah.
You know what you need to do, and you need to make plays that influence that game plan. And that's a huge deal, and what Casey said is absolutely right. So, obviously, everything we've discussed has talked about visualizing something, right? So, here's a few points that we want to make. So, visualize your plays is a huge part of this. So, what will the board look like after I make this play? Why is that important, Manny?
It's important to visualize what the board's going to look like. It's a part of your ongoing game plan, right? Everything you do, every turn you take, is advancing you towards, like you said, Casey, your path to victory. And if you're not imagining that and trying to read it, really see where it can go and where it will go and where you want it to go, then you're just kind of flopping and floundering around like a fish.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at the board and you're deciding, if I make this play, what does this look like after? Like, let's pretend it's an attack, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is something that a lot of people struggle with, is like, when am I supposed to attack when like the board is cluttered? And if you visualize what the board will look like after you make that attack, it's a lot easier. I all the time will just set up blocks. Like, what are my opponent's best blocks with the information I have? And I will just set his creatures there.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, can I touch your cards? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, all right, well, look at this. It's not that hopeful for him because he knows what his best blocks are. If I give my opponent credit, he also knows that information. I'm not going to...
Right, it's just the basic, like, okay, can he double block something to kill it for free?
Yeah.
Can he block, a 4/4 with 2 2/3s? Is that, he's trading a 4/4 for a 2/3 worth it for me?
Because, like, let's pretend that my opponent doesn't know that information. Like, he doesn't know what the best blocks are. Me giving him that information when I wasn't going to make that attack anyway because I thought he knew them doesn't help him.
Right.
Like, you're like, oh, no, you're giving him information by setting his cards there. And I'm like, and to myself, I'm thinking, no, I'm not. I'm giving me the best way for me to visualize that information.
Yeah, and more than anything, you're not necessarily giving them information because they could have a spell in hand or a creature in hand they're going to play next turn that totally changes the landscape of this board. You're telling them, you're kind of showing them what your thought process is, not necessarily, you're not teaching them how to block against you. You're showing them what your thought process is, which can be an information leak.
Sure.
But usually not a massive one, because as long as you aren't, like, if you're calculating if you're like, okay, if I attack like this, and then he blocks like this, and then I cast Abzan Charm, like, your opponent's probably going to play around Abzan Charm, and that might be bad for you. But if you...
I mean, at the same time, you could do something like that to give them bad information, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels
This
a little...
is super next level.
Yeah.
I love doing that.
But my point is that it is a benefit to you to visualize what the board will look like after you make a play, before you make the play.
Right.
Like, it's just free for you to do that. The next thing that you want to do when you're visualizing is, what does the composition of your hand look like, or your mana look like after you cast a spell? This is how most people tap their mana wrong, is they don't envision what their mana will look like after they've tapped it. So instead of tapping your mana, just, what does my mana look like if I cast the spell? How many sources do I have available? It's pretty easy to just do the math in your head. I have a triple blue spell. I have 4 blue sources. How many blue sources will I have left after? It's just simple math. But a lot of people just don't do it before they cast that cryptic command, right?
Right. People will tap in such a way, like, they want to tap basics first because they're less good to have open. They represent less things. But they don't think about the fact that I need to cast 2 blue spells. So, like, tapping Swamp Smoldering Marsh is better than tapping Swamp Island, because I need to cast 2 blue spells on this turn sequence.
Right. So that's pretty important. I think that if you can do that, you're going to lead to yourself to more... You're going to get more meaningful options because you have more options to play. And that is important. The other thing that you want to do when you're visualizing is, how does this impact my opponent's current game plan? This is exactly what Casey talked about earlier, what I talked about earlier. Manny, why does what you do impact your opponent's game plan?
I mean, you always want to take them off of their game plan, right? Whatever they want to do, you don't want them to do it. You want to do everything you can within reason, that's still beneficial to you, to stop them from doing those things. So if you have...
I mean, if you can stop them from doing what they want to do while you still get to do what you want to do, you're going to win every game.
Every single time,
Yeah.
right? That's the plan of every game, every sport. Anytime somebody is against somebody else, that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that it's a huge benefit to you when I think it was LSV talked about this. It's weird that he talked about it. I think he was talking about it on Limited Resources. But he talked about in constructive playtesting how he likes to play the deck that he's going up against because he gets to know what that deck doesn't like. And we, in our playtesting, do that a ton now, where I will just play every deck. I don't care if I like it. I don't care if I hate it. But I want to know why I don't like that deck. I want to know what the deck doesn't like. I want to know everything about it. Because in doing that, I learn. And I learn what I can do to interrupt my opponent's game plan once I have those decisions in front of me. And that's a huge deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things playing Abzan, you realize very quickly in the mirror is how important Anafenza is.
Anafenza is also important.
That's very good.
Yeah, she's a great girl.
So important how Anafenza is, right? If your opponent has a resolved Anafenza and you still have the same quality of cards other than that, they're gonna steamroll you. They're gonna run over you so badly.
Yeah, it makes your blocks terrible. Right?
Awful. Yeah, you don't want to do it. You don't want that to happen to you. You know exactly where the chink in the armor is.
Yeah. And so always to be thinking about what your opponent wants to be doing when you're making those decisions, and when you're visualizing it, visualize disrupting your opponent, because it's not... I don't feel like it's hard to do. Maybe it is. Maybe it's easy for me. These are things that I do in Magic every game. So when I wrote these show notes, this is... Am I off base here? Is this hard for anybody here?
No. I mean, so never having played the last Modern season, never having played Amulet Bloom, I knew Amulet of Vigor was kind of a big deal. He played it, passed the turn, Abrupt Decay. So he gave no facial expressions. He was cool as a cucumber. He was like, okay. After the match, I was like, how clutch was that? And he was like, devastating. He's like, after you did that, the match was unwinnable for me. And I was like, awesome.
So the next we have is the opposite of impacting theirs, and that's, what does this play make my current role in the game be? So not only is what is your role, but does this play change my role? Visualize what your role is and what your play is doing to either change that role, impact that role. For what is it doing?
Right. Like what happens when you make this play?
Yeah, I the game that when I think back to making meaningful plays the most, I think of that match that you had against Austin, and I think of the match that was it Austin and Joe?
No, it was Joe and Gavin, I think.
Joe and Gavin. Joe and Freddie Meyer. We'll make up a name. I don't care. It can be Gavin. I don't care. Some dude named Joey Schmoey. And anyway,
Joe the
we're
plumber.
watching this match, and it was painful.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
there's no.
it
there's no
resonated
easier
for
way.
me for the rest of my Magic career.
I mean, this was like a year and a half ago, and I still remember their board state like it was nothing, like it was yesterday.
Yeah, it was painful to watch, and nothing against Joe or Gavin, but nothing that they did impacted the game plan further. They drew a card and they just played it, right? And so that doesn't tell them what their role is in the game. It doesn't tell them what their opponent's role is in the game. It doesn't tell them what if they just drew cards and played them, and their decision making was.
I don't know. So the person that we were mostly dealing with at the time, because he was on our playtesting team, was Joe, and he had a reason for making the plays he did, but it wasn't meaningful, right? He said he was trying to play defensively. He wanted to set up his defense before he went on offense, which is a reason, but it's not. So what? Like, why? Why is that valuable?
Yeah, I mean, having a reason is great, right? But that's why I said this is the next step in that, right? We did an episode on having a reason a long time ago, and this is the next step to that. It's having your reason be making a meaningful impact on the game, and I wanted my shields up is not a good reason to do something unless you need your shields up and it's a meaningful impact on the game. So, man, that game was hard to watch.
It really was, and they were both playing green-red monsters, and there was a lot of creatures looking at creatures.
There were Storm Breath Dragons not tapping, and it was hard to watch, and that's nothing to do with those two. Like, it just is. Why did you do this? And when you are stepping away from a table, and your answer to why is questioned, don't shrug it off. It's great that you have an answer to the why. First of all, that you should applaud yourself that you know why you did something.
That's step number one, obviously.
But the next thing that you need to do is, did your why really matter in the game?
You need to. That's something that you need to have a little bit of honesty with yourself with, right? You need to be able to analyze your situation, analyze the reasons you give, and go back into that game and think to yourself, was that meaningful? Was that correct?
Yeah, the reason you actually came back to me, if I don't remember if you remember this conversation, you said, "Hey Spencer, I think you and Matt were right about that hand. I shouldn't have mulliganed it." Was we told you Abzang Charm was one of the best cards in the matchup, and when you were sitting down at the table, you're like, "It doesn't kill anything. It's not good."
Right.
And then you came back to me and said, "Oh, it's an instant speed divination. It's insane in this matchup. I was wrong."
Yes.
And it's because you realized the impact being able to leave up your mana against your control deck to make a meaningful play is. And that was it. That was the end of the discussion for you. You learned, oh, I get to draw 2 cards at instant speed against a deck that wants me to play spells on my turn. That's insane.
Right.
That's it. That
was it.
That's a light bulb over your head that other people can learn from.
Right.
They can have that moment that Manny had. And, Manny's like one of my best friends in the entire world. I think he's great. I think that he's always improving at Magic. That's why he's on the podcast. And maybe some of you listeners, maybe you already knew that. But Manny didn't, and he learned it, he admitted it, and he got better because of it. And that is... that's where you applaud somebody, because he improved at Magic. Everybody in their initial decision. That's why we said at the beginning of this podcast, at the beginning of this segment, like at times it can feel like you're being attacked. Like, no, I already know Abzan Charm doesn't kill anything in his deck.
Right.
I already know that, Spencer.
Yeah.
You're wrong, and it's so easy to fall into that.
Mm-hmm.
But you did it. You figured out all on your own. We didn't tell you why it was good.
if
You actually figured it out.
Yeah, just as a learning resource, the best thing you have available to you is not articles, is not guides or primers or anything like that. It's your fellow players who are more skilled, who have played longer. Those are the people you're going to learn from the most.
Yeah. even bigger than that is introspection, right? Looking at, okay, I'm looking at this for this reason. Why is this card important? What does it do? Okay, this 2 damage, this like 2+1 bluntness when counters thing is rarely ever going to come up.
Killing a creature will never come up.
Right. So, it's got to be for card drawing. Oh, because they're going to kill all my creatures, and I'm going to run out of gas before they're dead, and this is a 2-for-1. Oh.
Right. Yeah.
Bing. Like, so you took the advice, and then were introspective about it, and determined why it was important and how to improve.
Yeah. So that's it. So he figured out why the card in the matchup was meaningful. And that's important because the next thing we want to talk about is making logical conclusions of how this could impact your opponent by what they could have. So exactly the logic that Casey just followed is what Manny did. Manny realized how important it was to draw 2 cards against a control deck when your creatures aren't fast enough to kill them before it matters.
Yeah, need a little bit of reach there.
Yeah, you have to have a way to recoup your lost card advantage against the deck, especially when they're drawing extra cards. So Manny learns that, and he then understands that because they could have... In fact, in that same match, you talked about how you're playing against a Wrath effect, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and we talked about that on a previous podcast, but that was the same... This is the same thing. This is the exact same thing for both of these. Your match encompassed both of that. And what happens is, Manny realizes that because he has that Absurd Charm, he can play the second creature because he's going to recoup those lost cards, because he doesn't have to play the board further, because he's got 8 power in play. He's going to kill his opponent in 2 turns if his opponent doesn't Wrath. And then if his opponent does Wrath and gets that 2-for-1, he just casts that Absent Charm, draws 2 cards, plays 2 more creatures.
Right.
Right back where he started. And that is a huge deal.
Yeah, that's definition of a meaningful play right there.
Yeah, he made the decision to play that second creature into the Wrath, knowing that he could recoup that loss. All of those decisions were meaningful. He got to increase his clock by like 3 or 4 turns.
Yep.
He then didn't play another creature because he doesn't need to. It doesn't increase his clock. And then if his opponent wraths, he gets to recoup all of his losses.
Exactly.
This is a sequence of turns and a sequence of plays that seriously impacts how his opponent can play the game, and honestly puts his opponent in a very... Is precarious the word I'm looking for?
Yes.
Yeah, precarious situation. Like, it's a lose-lose for Austin. What does he do? Wrath? And then he's tapped out. His opponent draws 2 cards at instant speed and then plays a Siege Rhino and a Den Protector face down that he can flip up. Like, this is insane. He can't win. So it's all about leveraging, like, what is my opponent's best play? How do I play around that? Also, is that a reasonable play for them? Making a logical decision. Make a meaningful and logical guess to what could happen.
Yeah, exactly. If your opponent... Like, there's cards that, one, your opponent probably doesn't have. You know, like... It's not super common for people to play a bunch of Ruinous Paths.
They don't have the Ether Spouts. I know you got blown out by it, but they don't have it.
They don't. They never have had it since, before or since.
It was just that one time.
Yeah, that one moment in history they had Ether Spouts and it sucked. And you can't spend your life playing around it because you're just going to lose.
That killed me. Let's go on.
So you have to realize, one, and if they have the Ether Spouts, how are you ever going to beat it?
You're not
going to beat it this turn. You're not going to beat it next turn.
You're never going to beat it. You can't play around things that you can't beat.
There's just no point. There's a difference between making them have it and just letting them have nothing, right?
Right. That's a huge deal. And you have to make your decision. Like, the thing that I wrote down here is, don't make your decision that you're going to get blown up by Pyroclasm from the mono red deck. Like, play around Scouring Sands, because that can happen.
Right.
But they're not going to play Kozilek's Return against you, dude.
Atarka Red does not have that card in their wheelhouse.
They don't have Kozilek's Return out of the board. Like, if they do, like, and you lose to it, you lost a match that, like, against the average deck you gained so many percentage points by not playing around it that it's okay that you lost to it. You have to take that bad beat with you. Because when you played around Scouring Sands, that was right.
Yeah.
You can do that post-board.
Yeah, if you make a habit of playing around something silly like that, that's number 1 not probable and number 2 wrong. You're
losing equity in the matchup.
So much, right? You just turned your like 60-40 matchup into like 40-60.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing. Like, you can't, and it's actually funny because in Salt Lake we had a player who was playing Red-Black Vampires back in Zendikar time, and he in the mirror would board in Pyroclasm and pretend to be land screwed against his opponents, who would then play into the Pyroclasm. He'd Pyroclasm them, and the same turn as playing a bunch of vampires and just win. And so people started playing around Pyroclasm out of the board, so he stopped playing it, and it's like, just next level them so hard.
It's even better when you don't have it, right?
Yeah, it's so much better. So you You don't play around like they have it. They're red-black vampires when it doesn't have Pyroclasm. This guy was a madman. And you gain equity in the matchup by not making those decisions. So that's why I put that on here. Does what I'm saying make sense?
Yeah.
I struggled with that for a long time against control. Like, just being afraid of sweepers nonstop all the time. And it's just like, you know what? If they have it, you have to play through it and just...
I mean, he has 5 cards in his hand and they're all Wrath of God.
And that's why you're
it's
playing
so
as
unfair.
Charm, right?
Right. Yeah, you just get it. You gotta get there.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get there by not playing cards.
So
yeah.
I think that if you do all of the things we're talking about, if you do these visualizations, if you understand your role, if you do things like this, the number of impactful plays will slowly become clearer and more frequent for you. And you will see what's going on. And so what I wrote down here is wow moments in a game. And what I mean by that is when you're playing a match of Magic, sometimes you do something where you're like, wow, that was great. Or your opponent does something and you go, wow, he got me. And so there's a few things that when I think about this is those are all very impactful plays, right?
Right.
They got you to think, wow. And in all of those situations, either you didn't visualize correctly, you didn't know your role, you did know your role, you did visualize correctly, or an outlier happened. So what I want you to do when you have those wow moments is, I'm sorry that Brad Nelson and Casey Bloodworth faked that they didn't have their third land and then played 2 lands in a row and Day of Judgment you. Like, they're madmen. I don't know what to tell you.
This was you?
Yeah,
he's advocated it, and Brad Nelson has advocated it, and they're both crazy.
Yeah, when I think that both of us admitted like it's an insane act of hubris, but like sometimes it's your only path to victory.
Sometimes
seems so glad.
The percentage points.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
It's shouldn't have brought it up. Anyway, if you lose to that madman play, I'm sorry. You gain equity and percentage points, and that line moves closer to you by understanding that they missed their third land drop and playing correctly.
Right. Yeah,
So-
I agree in general. If your opponent misses their third land drop, plays their third land on turn 4, and you have an opportunity to put lethal on board, you should probably do it. They're probably not, like, the chance that they both have a land on top of their deck and have a Wrath of God in hand is pretty low.
Right.
But sometimes they have both of those cards in their hand, and you got tricked.
Yeah, sometimes you're just
And
gonna get got.
Such a bad play.
And
just
it's
gonna get
a
got.
low percentage situation, but
It's a non-existent situation. It's
Yeah,
only
this is-
2 people
this-
in the world who have ever
Nothing like-
advocated it.
Nothing like that has ever happened to me in any game of Magic I've played.
that you know of.
Anyway, my point was not to bring this to Manny's attention as much
No,
as it was.
I will not play around that kind of nonsense. Not
You
ever.
shouldn't.
Not ever in my whole
You
life.
lose percentage points by playing.
Yeah,
it.
you absolutely
don't
should.
do it.
Right.
Right.
My point was not to bring that to Manny's attention as much as it was to point out that they're not crazy people. They're not. Like, you need to give your opponents credit, and you also need to make sure that the things that you're doing impact the game of Magic you're playing, because you will slowly watch that line move closer to you in every single match of Magic you play. And that's all you want, because Magic is a game of nickel and diming, just like football, right? Like, it's these small little things that you do to, in the end, put the game in your favor. So that's it. That's all I got for the training grounds. Anybody got anything else?
When you said, they're not crazy for doing that, it just made me think of like Homer Simpson saying "crazy like a fox."
I said that they would be. They are not crazy, and they would do that. Let's be clear here.
Yeah, your average
They're-
opponent is not
they're-
crazy enough to sandbag the land that early in the game, because it's crazy. Like if you choose not to play into it,
Because you can't play 2 turns. Like you will then have a turn later where you can't play 2 spells. So unless you get a 5 for 1, it's wrong. Anyway, the soul read. I mean, when it works, it's a great story to tell your friends.
Sounds
But
phenomenal.
All right, should we wrap this up? And he's got to get to work. All right, don't forget that you can join the clan on MTGO by messaging me at Spencer13Dev or Quentin at
Earthstripe, URTHSTRYPE.
Don't forget that you can check out our sponsor at OasisGames.com, MTGOasis.com, or OasisCCG.com. You can get discount codes. Don't forget about that. Patreon goals. So don't forget that we get a special episode for the patrons of the show at $150. That means we're only about $50 away from you guys getting bonus content, special episode from us. So, jump in there. If you guys want some extra content, you can start donating at $1 per month to as much as you want. You can also set set it up however you want. We're never going to take extra from you. It's always going to be whatever you set it up as.
Oh, and on a side note, you guys should check us out on YouTube. So we're expanding our video content by like 100 times probably.
More than that.
Yeah.
Probably.
From none to some.
From none to a lot. Like mountains. So we're going to have tons of things. We're going to have deck techs. We're going to have primers. We're going to have crack-a-packs. We're going to do a lot of fun stuff on there. There's going to be a lot of content coming your way. So you probably want to subscribe, follow us, and have fun with us in video. You might like us less. We have faces for radio, but that's okay.
Faces for radio. Don't forget that you can always find us on different places on the interwebs. That's where I was going to talk about the YouTube channel. So.
Oh, beat you to it, sucker.
Gotcha.
Go ahead, Manny. Where can people find you?
Twitter. You can find me on Twitter and Facebook.
Where?
Which ones?
Any old place.
What's your handle?
Okay. My handle on Twitter is Manny, MANNY, _CCMTG. You can find me on Facebook. My name there is Manuel, MANUEL. Last name Meraz, MERAZ. That's all I got. That's all I got going on.
Casey, where can people find you? What's your Reddit handle, Casey?
I
You're a Redditor?
No.
I do use Reddit. I mostly look at pro wrestling stuff. I don't really dabble on the Magic boards too much. But you can find me on Twitter at CCBloodthirst and on Facebook at CaseyTunaBloodworth. And I used to post the podcast to Reddit all the time. And if you see me posting on there, it's Sneaky Fish. But don't message me on there.
Don't talk to me.
Don't talk to me on Reddit. You can find me on Facebook at Spencer Stephen Hallen. You can find me on Twitter at Spencer13H. If you want to talk sports, Spencer13Sports. What happened to your wrestling account, by the way?
I decided that I didn't want to have two accounts, so I just
whatever.
Yeah, so whatever exactly.
Yeah, see, that's how I felt. So I just stopped using most of the swear words on my Twitter.
Yeah, so
I'm going to dial it down.
I lost about 20 followers, and then I've gained them all back since then, or gained that many more back. So we're back in business.
Okay. You can find the podcast at CCMTG, ConstructedCriticism.com, OasisGamesLLC.com, MTGcast.com, and YouTube.com. Just look for Constructed Criticism. Don't forget that we love you guys, and we're just going to give a shout out to the Facebook group as a whole. It's been great. If you haven't checked it out, join the Constructed Criticism Facebook group. You can like us on Facebook. Just look for Constructed Criticism. And don't forget on iTunes, please, please, please subscribe. We're trying to move people to that direction. It will grow the podcast fast. If you have the time, just the iTunes link is in the show notes. Please subscribe there. Leave a review. Let us know how terrible or great you think we are. We just want your guys' feedback, and we want to share what you guys think about us with the world. So,
my shout out is to Michael Hinderrocker. He's one of the players on our team. What do you call it? Just like
it's a playtest team.
Playtest team?
The squad.
Competitive Magic spiking PPTQ squad. The A team. I'm going to call us the A team.
Please don't.
It's done.
Please don't.
Michael Hinderrocker, though, man, that guy is like, he's always down to test. He's always working hard. He knows his matchups in and out. His play is really tight. I think he's going to do really, really great. Like, I think he's a shoo-in for the RPTQ again.
Cool. I think he's great, too. Casey, shout-outs?
I actually want to give a shout out to a fan, Josh Walker. He's reached out to us on Facebook a couple of times recently, trying to break into Modern, building a couple of blue-white-red control decks, different varieties, things like that. He and I had a chat over Facebook Messenger last night about tuning his deck, things like that. He's just a guy that's really focused on getting better and trying to build his deck the best way he can. And I'm impressed with my conversations with him. And
Josh Walker is awesome. By the way.
He's just super friendly, super cool guy.
I have a shout out to my wife, like always, but we actually are going through.
Did you just do a shout out, son?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
The podcast shouted out the fans in the Facebook group.
Oh, I was.
And also, I was going to touch on that Facebook group thing. You might get some free behind the scenes content because we're all in like 3 Facebook groups that start with constructive criticism. So sometimes we post things to the wrong group, and you get a behind the scenes conversation. That's for free. That's a free service.
Did we do that? What did you post?
I posted. What did I post?
It was about like ideas for YouTube shows, things like that. Where
that was public. Oh, I didn't know that.
No, it was one. What was it though?
It was talking about. I don't remember what it was. It was talking about The event decks, I think.
Oh yeah, I was like, hey guys, I want to post like event deck thing. And I was like,
Reviews,
oh,
yeah.
I was like, oh, this is the wrong.
Oh, that's right.
The wrong group. It's fine because I like love their feedback, and
Yeah.
I think that like the feedback from the Facebook group has literally been like amazing. But I didn't mean to post that there.
That's funny.
So
I mean, I live my life in fear of that because of how many constructive criticism Facebook groups I'm in. So
there's literally two.
There's
three.
three.
There's three.
Well, I guess you could post on the page incorrectly. Do you want me to remove you from the page?
No, so there's there's
the
4
testing
including that.
team.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, there's 4 different pages.
Oh, you're right.
That start with constructive criticism, and they're the only groups that show up in like my
They're the
my
only
favorites.
ones that you care about.
Right,
Yeah,
because the other ones are all like off of it or whatever. So like those are, and like they have different icons. So like it's not that
I
that
tried
easy.
to do that.
Yeah.
It's like the cup of coffee.
But like it's like pretty easy to like misclick something, and none of it's gonna be like crazy. Like
Yeah, I tried to make them all different.
I care so little about what I post in the CCMTG testing team. Like I think yesterday
Yeah, it shows.
I posted I posted the Karate Kid with "You're the best around."
You did?
Song. Yeah, with "You're the best around" playing
Manny,
over it.
so we're sitting there, and I'm locked for top 8, and Manny says, "You always have a song. You should listen to the best." And I was like, "No, I'm not listening to that."
It's a good one, man.
I mean, I have listened to that for a tournament.
Yeah, it got Daniel's son pumped up. He beat up that blonde kid.
yeah,
The real Karate Kid.
Right.
Anyway, my shout-outs. Shout out to my wife. We're actually going through some stuff right now, and it's really hard for her, and I love her, and I think she's great. Shout out to Manny's girlfriend, Nicole. I also think she's fantastic. She, just a trooper, having to deal with Manny every day. I think she's great.
Probably like the toughest job on earth. Like I know that I'm like an unruly man child with like temper tantrums. Like I can't imagine having to live with me.
I actually like legitimately like love Nicole. I think she's so great.
Me
So-
too. I also love her.
More than I do.
I mean, I should hope.
that'd be
But-
ideal.
It would. Anyway, I love both those girls so much. Shout out to Quentin. He's back in the Magic scene, and he told
And
me
more bearded than ever.
Yeah, I was gonna say rocking a beautiful beard.
But he let me know that he really enjoyed hanging out with us last weekend, and he really missed it. And I just want Quentin to know that I love him. I think he's great, and I'm glad to see him back. And I'm glad that the struggles that he's been going through have gotten easier for him. And I love you, dude. So, yeah. All right. Hashtag would that be good? Casey, what is hashtag would that be good?
It's our Twitter outreach program.
He's right, Manny.
That's
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah.
That's what it is.
yeah.
Oh man.
So basically, it's a chance for you to go on Twitter, fire it up, ask a question, use the hashtag would that be good. We'll most likely read it on the show and answer your question. And it also gives a chance for like other members of the community to see it, and you guys can work together.
Awesome. So the first hashtag of the week comes from me. I use this to announce stuff because it shows up on the website. I also know that some fans check hashtag with the be good regularly. There's new weekly content on the CCMTJ website. Hashtag with the be good. We will now be doing 2 weekly blog posts on the article section. What?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. I thought you were giving me like a thumbs down. I was like, what did I do?
You
You're
dumb.
reading this terribly.
Boo.
The first will be a weekly blog post of the show's weekly power rankings. All right, can we just... This has been asked for so long.
Shouldn't we do a slow clap? I've wanted to do a slow clap my whole life.
Go for it.
I can't do it by myself. Like, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Casey.
Hey, it's no problem at all.
So this is something that's been asked for a while.
And I refuse.
And Manny wouldn't do it. So Casey's doing it. So shout out to Casey. The other one is there will be a we bringing back what we'd play. We all the time get asked, hey, what deck would you play right now? We say it on the podcast. Well, what's the deck list? So every week, if we're inspired by a deck, like we're just gonna post our deck list. If you have questions, reach out to the person that you want to know about their deck. Got ton of Teamer Black questions after this weekend. You should have just played it this week, guys. Sorry, it was posted early.
I'm going to be on the Red Black Dragons train probably until Cons rotates.
Oh wow.
Aggressive, I like it.
I want to just like I did very much with Abzan. I want to know a deck's ins and outs and be very proficient with it, and not forget Goblin Dark Dwellers doesn't have Menace.
Sure. So every week you'll have those two articles.
That was a double negative.
Yeah.
I want to not forget that it does have it. Sorry.
Yeah,
I was just going to let it
Yeah.
pass.
No, I don't like that.
Do you want to correct yourself?
Yeah.
That's fine, because somebody on Twitter would have corrected you.
Oh, good.
fact.
I don't not love that.
So the other thing is right now the current plan is for me and Matt to do a weekly video testing. It's been snowing or like stuff has come up. We do it on Mondays, so whenever we can, we're gonna do it. Today it snowed really bad, and Matt had something come up, so it was like a 2-for-1. That's
not a 2-for-1.
it's not a 2-for-1. That's just two separate occurrences.
Also, these like trying to record testing videos at Oasis is something that we tried to launch with the show originally, and they were like cursed then too. So this isn't surprising.
Well, so I now have the capability of doing it,
Okay.
and the computer that Manny is using for the podcast did not have the power to do it. I can record it now.
I see.
This isn't wood. But so that's something, and then Manny and I are doing weekly deck techs. We launched our test one that has over 100 views.
Sweet. That's 10 cents. We're on our way. 10 cents in the bank.
I don't think you get $1 until you get to 1,000.
Yeah, I know, but it's cumulative. Like, it'll be fine. We're going to get there.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
So check out that. We did a deck tech on the deck that Manny said he was playing the next week and didn't.
Which one?
You said you were playing Team Eldrazi. That's
Yeah,
why we
I'm
did
such a liar.
Coward.
Just don't listen
Coward.
to me. My mind literally changes every 15 seconds.
It's true.
The whole
so
red
yeah,
black
so
dragon
tons,
thing, 2 days
tons
tops.
of yeah. That's happened. You're gonna walk out of here.
That's a
and see
lock.
You're gonna see a deckless walking out of the room and change your mind. But yeah, tons of new content. So check it out. Let's move on to Paul, who says, "Would Grixis Cruel Control be a good deck in Modern with Twin Con?" At the Master of Modern cast, Spike Feed cast, Rcast, hashtag that'd be good. I mean, I love Cruel Control. All for it. The thing is like here's my opinion: is that with cards like Scapeshift, Rug Scapeshift, and that deck around, what benefit do you have? Because Scapeshift kills them on the spot, right? They're just dead.
Right.
So there's your 1-card combo, and while you win every game you cast Cruel Ultimatum, it costs more than Scapeshift.
Right. It
So
costs
what
8
is your
mana.
benefit for playing Cruel Control over Rug Scapeshift is my question.
Style.
You don't have to
Yeah,
play.
that's one style points.
You don't have to play ram spells in your deck, right? So you get to play more control stuff.
Why would you want that?
Why would
Because
you
ram
not
spells are
want
the
one?
worst.
Yeah, you could, like...
Obviously, we don't have the same opinion on this.
So like the downside is the fact that Scapeshift is something you cast when you have 8 lands in play on turn 5 or 4. Cruel Ultimatum is something you cast when you have 8.
a lot of times, and it's on turn 7 or
Right.
8.
Yeah, it's,
Right.
it's usually
But,
on
like-
7, I think.
Yeah, I mean you usually get a couple ram spells in though. So I would say probably turn 6 is like your average 8 mana turn. Where in Cruel Control it's turn 8, assuming you haven't missed a land drop. And if you like, you can only hold them off for so long. I don't think that Twin was what was keeping Cruel Control out of the format.
As much as the mana cost of Cruel.
Yeah, the
It's
fact that
aggressive.
deck's,
I mean, like, it's
I think
not
it's blue,
easy.
blue, red, black, black, black.
Yes.
yeah, triple black, double red, double blue, and a colorless, right? Or 2 colorless. Something it's
no.
You can't
Is
say
it-
it's
is it
not-
only 7?
It's
Yeah, it's only...
it's
there's
black,
no-
black, black,
there's
red,
no
red, blue,
generic.
blue.
Okay.
Yeah, no generic whatsoever.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know that Casey's ever cost a 7-cost spell in his life, so he wouldn't know that.
I have cast an Angel of Serenity and a Sphinx of Revelation for much more than 4. And those are the 2.
And a Clan Defiance
yeah, and Clan Defiance. Yeah,
for 20.
yeah, or yeah, as much as it
Oh,
took.
yeah, sure.
Cast all kinds of
So,
spells.
am I wrong though? Like to my point, like you already have a 1-card combo in the format in a control shell. What makes this one better? Is my opinion.
Yeah, I think that like maybe if you
To be fair though, if he can make it work, I'll play it.
Yeah, I mean, Grixis Control is already a semi-viable deck. I don't think it's very good. Some people think it's extremely good. Whatever, the answer's probably somewhere in the middle. But
Like all things.
yeah, the shell is there. So maybe like 1 to 2 Cruel Ultimatums in the sideboard for your grindier matchup, something like that might be where to go. I just don't know that like Cruel Control as an archetype is viable in
Sure.
Modern.
Next up, we have CJ Leach saying, sending your coworker to get donuts and milk instead of actually working. Hashtag rather be good. Does he get donuts and work? Like, does he get the donuts that he goes and gets? Because if not, that's just cruel and unusual.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
do that to people.
But also, Are you the one that went and got donuts and milk
And you the coworker.
instead of working? Because if so, and you're also tweeting while you're doing it,
This guy's crushing it.
He's a good life.
He is winning.
This is the thumbtack life. I'm getting. What did you do to work today? I got a massage.
No, that's good.
It is good. I think that's next Friday.
That's awesome.
You're starting a business.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
So, if you are the one that got to get the donuts and milk, that's great. If not, and you didn't give him donuts, that's cruel. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, every time I send one of my coworkers to go get the pizza that I just purchased, I have to give him half. You can't be like, oh, thank you for bringing me my pizza.
Or you could. You're the boss.
No, you don't do that. You don't do that to
You
people.
shouldn't. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying you
don't.
I'm saying you did,
It's not
Manny.
physically
You
impossible.
did.
I don't think I could. I don't think I could crack open the pizza box and be like, stop looking at it.
My first Oath of Gatewatch pre-release deck went 4-0, 8-0 in games in a single game? What?
8-0 in game. He means he didn't lose a single game.
Oh, he didn't lose it. Okay. Well, obviously, you have the best card, second best card in the set, in Chandra in your deck.
So good.
Bowler Salvo is also great. This deck just looks great. You see this. What is this card called?
I can't see it.
It's-
Deceiver of form.
Yeah, that card is just like kills. It's just overrun on a stick. So your deck looks sweet, Eric. Also, shout out to Eric. Eric was brutally honest with us about the brewing the brews.
Brews and bros.
No, it's not called that. I'm not calling
Brewing
it that.
after brews.
Brewing after brews. Yeah.
Okay.
Which, by the way,
with bros?
we're 100% doing it. I think it will be a monthly show.
Okay. Well, I
Or-
mean, maybe I don't
or
know.
a
if my-
daily show.
I don't know if my liver
No,
can
it's
handle
not a
that.
daily
show.
show.
I can't drink that much that often.
It's once a month.
Yeah, that's a lot. It hurts my organs for like days afterwards.
I mean, he's sick and enfeeble. Like,
So are you saying you're gonna film it and me and Casey are gonna do it?
Yeah, we can alternate. I can do it every other month. That's fine.
This is scary.
Casey, yeah, you're gonna get it.
such is life.
Casey's over here like, it's a hard not life for me.
Yeah.
Getting drunk all the time. You'll see. Next up we have Scotty, who says, building an all Korean mill deck so that I can call.
So you can call it Kim Jong Mil.
Hashtag would that be good?
Yeah, I think that's great. I love it.
So what is about to be said on this podcast is not endorsed by constructive criticism
Or
racist,
most likely the United States.
or the United States of America. But I love that.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I don't think you should actually do it, but I think that the idea is funny.
I mean, obviously he won't do it.
people will do things.
Yeah, they do things.
People do
Can you
all
imagine
kinds of
if
things.
he won?
You know how
like, let's pretend that Scotty is in the top 8 of an SCG, and Cedric, he grabs a stack of papers, he smacks them on the table, and we have Scotty playing Mill. That's all he would say.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that they used to say the deck names. Now they don't care what you put.
Yeah.
They're going to change it to whatever they want. Having more shows with guests. Hashtag would that be good? Oh wait, I skipped like
you skipped
2. At Magic the Machine, 2
Took
Crochet.
crochet to
It's called
PPPQ.
made top 8. The correlation is real.
I completely believe that, Marianne. Like,
So are you going to crochet your next BDQ?
if I knew how, yes.
I challenge you to do it.
No, I don't know how.
You got to learn.
No.
Hashtag YouTube.
No, but I bet I bet it like relaxes her.
I bet
gets
I
her
bet,
in the
hold
zone
on,
and
I
focuses
bet,
her.
I would bet that 100% of people who have crocheted at PPDQs have top 8'd. Because I bet she's the only one.
I actually would be surprised if she was the only one.
Yeah, me too.
I think
come
people
on.
do stuff.
At
Yeah.
PPDQs?
You know how many people play Magic the Gathering?
a lot.
I mean, there's 200 of those a day.
That's true.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
somebody's probably given birth at a PPPTQ
Yeah,
by now.
someone's probably like
That's probably true.
sneezed and like pooted themselves already. Like,
Yeah.
things that happen like every few seconds.
It's things. There's just too many of them going on. There's no way that like.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say it's close to 50% then.
Okay.
I mean, I would assume that everyone who's ever done it is top 8'd personally.
I think it's a good idea having something to relax you, because sometimes like playing Magic can be tense, and especially if you're playing an aggressive deck where you have some downtime, like you want to be able to do something that will keep you sharp and active, And yeah, it's a good idea.
Also, Marianne is awesome. I said her name wrong. I apologize. But we were actually talking about her before the cast, and I think that Manny thinks that she's the greatest.
Yep.
Yeah. So shout out to you, Marianne. Scotty, once again, he says, at Spencer13H, at the real Donald Trump. It's back! It's back.
It's back.
It's back. People are tweeting to me with... I mean, I don't really appreciate this one, but I appreciate it
Oh my
usually.
gosh, this is so funny. This guy's hilarious.
He says, I know one of you has given much more sound financial advice than the other. Hashtag would it be good?
Yeah, only one of you has been bankrupt.
That's true. I would assume that also only one of us has ever had $0 in their bank account, though.
I mean, he had like negative millions at one point.
That's probably not true.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of like the definition of being bankrupt, right?
Yeah, but that's
When
not
you have
what
more,
happened,
when you
right?
have more
So
debt than
I understand
assets.
what you're saying. Like he had actual like
Yeah.
paper dollars in the bank, but like owed the government much more than he had.
He actually probably just had like probably not in a bank, but like a vault in his home. He
Or in
seems
the-
like the type
like in the
he,
Caymans?
like Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's Scrooge McDucking it up. He's like jumping into a pool of coins. By the way, that looks painful.
Yeah, horrible.
Racist Scrooge McDuck come to life.
Also,
Yeah.
when is DuckTales coming back?
Never.
Never.
No, that's not
Yeah,
true.
no.
They're redoing it.
Why?
Because it's the greatest.
I'm old. I don't want to watch that.
DuckTales.
Well,
woohoo.
there will be a whole generation of younger children.
Yeah, but they don't matter.
That's true.
They watch like I don't know, stupid things with dancing and singing. They don't
Once
care about
again,
that.
and not everything that Manny Morris says is endorsed by Constructive.
They haven't even learned things yet. That's not. They're not relevant.
Honest Bob says, having more shows with guests. Hashtag would that be good? We discussed that actually today during our podcast meeting. I don't know. It's
Yes,
hard.
it
It's
would
hard.
be good.
I feel like we as a podcast have like a significantly higher echelon that we want players to be guests as. Like, I don't want. This sounds bad.
We don't necessarily want like random SCG grinders, right?
Not
Not a disrespect to them.
Not even, so like for
What?
example.
I do. I
No,
would.
no. I don't.
I would-
don't.
I
I have
would
0%. Like
wanna
if
talk
Jim
with
Davis
Tom
was like,
Ross
I want to
for,
come
like,
on your.
days.
Hold on. If Jim Davis was like, I want to come on your podcast, I'd be like, that sounds great, Jim. What do you want to talk about? I wouldn't be like, yeah, Jim, come on. And so many podcasts have these episodes with guests that I don't learn anything from.
Right. If somebody is an expert in a field, like Ross Merriam is like, he's not the most accomplished, but he's very bright and he has some accomplishments and he's
Yeah.
very good at analyzing board states.
Right.
So if he wanted to come on and talk about attacking and blocking and analyzing and like a super in-depth mathematical approach to a board state,
If
yes,
Tom Ross
absolutely.
wanted to come and talk about aggro, this isn't like we had a conversation. Episode 100, we actually legitimately had a conversation with Reed Duke, Huey Jensen, and Owen Turtwell, is just doing the episode with us. And the thing is like it didn't happen because we couldn't. Because it's probably my fault. I am so picky. I want to talk about something with somebody. Like for example, if I had Brad Nelson on, I'd want to talk about the fire in the zone. That is the exact thing I'd want to talk about with him. If I had, it's so important to me to having a reason, right? Is I'm going to have a guest because I have a reason to have them on the show, because the show is so important to me, and I don't want just to do things for random. So I love promoting like Curtis's show because I love Curtis. I think he's great. I love supporting KYT. I think that the episode that never got aired with KYT, for one, I just love KYT. I love supporting him and things like that. But they came on the show. They read the show notes. They understood what was going on the show. They also have listened to the show, and so they deserve to be a guest. But like, I'm not gonna reach out to somebody and say, "Hey, come on the show," and then be like, "Okay." So have you like?
How's it going?
Yeah. Like,
How's your day?
like for example, John Fingal. We had a very specific thing to talk to him about, right?
Yeah.
And even before, like we had Alexander Hayne on the schedule for months. Like, Alex, what are you good at in Magic? And Alex said, I'm good at having a plan. And I said, okay, let's write a show together, and then you can come on. And for John, it was so easy. It was surrounding himself with Owen, Reed, Huey, and Sam Black, and
Gabe and Tom Martell, and that whole team is great.
yeah, and so it was easy to like, all right, we're going to talk about surrounding yourself with greatness and how it's improved your Magic game. We also wanted to promote his Gamers Helping Gamers. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. Like, that's the greatest.
Yeah.
So there's specific reasons we have guests on, and we have significantly less guests than other Magic podcasts. But it's because I personally, you can't blame Manny or Casey or Quentin or Matt. I am really picky. This show, it means a lot to me, and I want every episode to have an impact on somebody's life and impact on their Magic game. And so I'm not going to have somebody on that isn't impacting you in some way. So I hope that answers your question.
So it will happen, but it's never going to be like a regular feature of the show.
Yeah. Casey, what's next?
From Marion McDonald, we have Shu Yun the Silent Tempest in Blue-Red Prowess. Would that be good? Hashtag MTG.
I don't know what that is.
Shu Yun the Silent Tempest is a
guy.
legendary from Fate Reforged. It's blue with a red-white activated ability for, I think, 4 mana to give it double strike, and it also has prowess. So it's one of the more powerful cards that never really saw play. But I think it's just too overshadowed by Monastery Mentor in every deck that it's ever been viable in.
That and the fact that it is, in addition to the spell you're casting, a little mana intensive, and that you need that mana to fire it off.
Oh, and it only costs 2 mana to activate.
Yeah, I mean, it's
It's pretty good.
That's still a number, right?
Oh, and it's, yeah. So, like, the idea is, like, you play this, you cast Titan Strength on it, making it an 8-power creature and give it double strike and just get them.
Get him.
But that's like
if you're playing blue-red instead of
Jeskai,
it could be time where this is relevant. Also, whenever you cast on a creature spell, if you target creature, gains double strike.
fact. So, like, it does a thing. It could be a viable one-of in the deck or something like that. I don't think that you want to get Shu Yun the Silent Tempest flooded. Yeah, it's not something you want access to every game.
You feel probably bad.
Right. It's not like Geist of Saint Traft where it's so good that, like, having one is so powerful that I'm willing to have one stranded in my hand.
I don't hate the idea. That's all I'm going to say on it.
No, I don't hate it either. I think it's probably fine as a one-of.
Yeah. Test it out. Let me know how it goes.
Well, that is it for this week. Don't forget that you can always tweet at us with hashtag That'd Be Good. You can join the Facebook group. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, and we are happy to talk to anybody. Manny, I know that you have to go call Justin Bieber's manager, talk to him about that waiting list on getting on that entourage. So
this is what we're gonna do. You're going to attack him, and then I'm gonna come out of nowhere and save him. And that's my in. Like, I'm gonna have to brutally beat you, but like it'll be worth it in the end.
This dude saved my life.
It sounds like a basically foolproof strategy.
Yeah, how could it go wrong?
I mean, me for one.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Casey, you like punching things, right?
Yeah,
no, that's probably not true.
I mean, it's all right. It has its moments.
All right, so he's gonna punch Justin out. All right, everybody. I love Justin Bieber, so I can.
Are you a believer?
I am. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you all next week.
See you guys.
Magic, 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 magic.